Welcome to the Living Well podcast, hosted by Terry Megley, CEO of City Union Mission. In each episode, we bring you inspiring stories of transformation and insights from those who've overcome life's challenges. Join us on this journey of resilience and discovery. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome back to the Living Well podcast, and I'm excited to pick up part 2 with Amber and with her husband, Ben. If you had joined us in our previous episode, you heard the incredible journey that Amber went as a single mom trying to discover the meaning of life and how she lands on accepting Christ and gone through jail and just becoming a single mom, and then, working through addictions, and then landing at City Union Mission at the Women and Family Center, going through their long-term recovery program, and just the excitement that Amber had about, hey, this was meaningful, and I've learned so much about life and what I've been doing wrong and what I can do right. And so we're excited now to pick up this incredible journey of how Amber overcome obstacles, and those challenges now have turned into a major comeback. And so this is an opportunity for you as well to take this journey, and maybe you will have a comeback story as well to tell. So Ben, we want to welcome you on the show here.
Glad to be here.
And it's exciting to see you. And so we're gonna pick right up where we left off, Amber. And you had graduated from the program and you moved into the transitional living apartments. And so it's for those that are familiar with that or learning about that, that's a semi-independent living apartment, and you're almost on your own. Mm-hmm. And you had to go find a job. So tell us, where did you end up start working at when you were on this transitional program while Ellie was at school?
Nice. So I had started working at Chick-fil-A. It was an answered prayer because, at the time, the amount of money that I was making was exactly what I had prayed for, to be able to move into the transitional living place, to support both me and Ellie. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't have to pay full-on rent, praise God, because I don't know how I would have made that work, but God and his provision helped us to be into this transitional living place, which was amazing because I had been, I don't know, maybe a year sober by the time I moved out into the transitional living place. But if I knew moving into the transitional place that I still had all the support and the structure that I needed from the City Union Mission, because they said that they would come in and do random clean checks just to make sure everything was going good, and that I would have to check in with our not house managers, building managers. We'd have to check in with them if we came in late, or we just had that structure, which was amazing. And we'd have to sign forms if we wanted anybody to come over and hang out. And man, I was so excited because we was on our own. We was on our own, and I felt like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing something right. We have a place with just me and Ellie, and I'm out in the real world still staying sober, which was great. And then, so I was a team lead at Chick-fil-A, and Ellie, it was such a great school that she was going to. It was called Urban Christian Academy. Mm-hmm. And it was so great. It was godly centered, and the people were amazing, and a lot of the workers actually worked at or they worked there, but they went to my church, Midtown Baptist Temple. So it just, everything was coming together, and it was so great. And yeah.
Well, I want to pick back up. You said that you were a team leader. That's significant because you were taking leadership of a group of people. You were taking on a role that was responsible and coaching and leading. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that feel that you were like chosen and rose up through the ranks to be able to be in that role?
Yeah, so it was really cool. Coming into Chick-fil-A, I just started out as a team member, and my answered prayer was to become a team leader. And it kind of just all happened because I had a friend who, she wasn't my friend until she started working there. And then now we just have that cultivated friendship of just working together. And now it's just, we always talk about our Chick-fil-A days. But she actually came in as a team leader. She got raised up and she needed her spot to be filled. And she's like, hey, you'd be perfect. And all the other leaders were like, yeah, let's put her onto our team. But it was really stressful and really hard because I'm the type of person, I'm a mom. So it's like, I'm going to get things done. I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it pretty quickly. So having to delegate out certain tasks, that's where it was a hurdle that I had to overcome because, like, knowing that I can do these things probably faster and better and more efficient, delegating those tasks is key because being a leader, you need to be able to not only delegate the task, but then go back and make sure that they're doing the task correctly and they're doing it in a timely manner. So, I always go back to thinking of whenever you're faithful in little, God will give you, like, you're going to be faithful in more. So I looked at it like, okay, well, I had been faithful and I've been faithfully coming to church and I've been doing these things and stewarding my time correctly. So this is amazing that God is giving me more responsibility and he's doing that through giving me leadership roles in my church and at work. So it was really good, but it was stressful. But I mean, in turn, I feel like I excelled, and they wanted to make me, what is it called?
A shift manager?
Yeah, they wanted to make me a director.
Director, okay.
But I had just started going to college, so I had to turn them down. They're like, you can become a director, but you're going to have to work more hours.
Right.
And it's like, well, that would be great, but I just started school, and I had Ellie, and it wouldn't really have been feasible for me to take on that role when I couldn't give what they needed.
Right.
But it was really cool to see, like, hey, you are doing something right. Like, you did good in this, now I'm going to give you more. But I had wanted to take a different path into nursing.
Okay. And we love to go the nursing on there, but was there a direct connection to you learning communication skills, conflict management, self-awareness, social management skills, and that you were able to take that to your work, knowing that you just went through recovery and now you're helping others? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So that's amazing, and it's so great the correlation to where it's like the City Union Mission, what I had done and learned there was so applicable for being a team leader in my workplace. like knowing boundaries and having to have conflict management, understanding how to have that difficult conversation whenever something would happen between either a customer and a team member, or two team members that just couldn't seem to get along correctly. Just telling them, like, hey, this is a workspace. We have to be respectful to each other. You don't have to kiss and make up and be best friends, but you do have to talk and communicate correctly towards one another, and do that in love and be respectful. And most of the workers, which is one of the reasons why I chose Chick-fil-A, were like, a lot of them had been saved, because Chick-fil-A is very much a godly establishment. Most of them were, but some of them weren't. So yeah, it was really great.
So you were, experiencing success by applying what you've learned through your recovery and through life skills, and seeing God's faithfulness. But you had a different direction, and you mentioned nursing.
Yeah.
What was your tug towards nursing? Why was that interesting you at the moment?
So nursing was just a place in my heart, because at the City Union Mission there was a nurse there, and I had asked her how she got the job, because they have like an not on call, but like 2 days a week or something, you could go and see a nurse if you had any issues or anything, and she'd say, well, this is what you can do, or she'd refer you to go to the hospital if it's too much. But just seeing that nurse there really made me want to serve people in that aspect, so that I could actually return back to the City Union Mission whenever I had gotten my degree, so that I could serve in that way. And just knowing, like, being a nurse is a very selfless career choice. And I wanted to be as much like Christ as I could. And then the pay rate also helped me want that a little bit more too.
Right. A little bit more than Chick-fil-A. Just a little bit more.
Yes.
Right. Without all the benefits of the check-in and all the great milkshakes.
Right.
Well, we probably understand you're still enrolled, and you still have a class or two left. And so you're still in that program. And that's exciting, and we'll love to have you come back again. Yeah. But we're really kind of interesting to know how did you meet this guy over here? How did you meet Ben? So maybe, Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you first met Amber?
Yeah. So the first time I had ever seen her, it was at my church, or our church. I had been going there only a few months, and there was some cookie reception, and I was in the basement where everybody was, and I was doing some drawing. I was doing Inktober drawing, and Ellie sat on the table across from me and saw that I was drawing, and so I was showing her my different markers and pens and stuff and how to use them. And so we were like drawing together, and then she comes up, and I don't remember what, just to make sure she knew where her daughter was, and that was the first time I had ever seen her, said hi to her. But in my mind it was like, I just kind of assumed she's probably married. Like, I was like, oh, she's cute. Oh, but she's probably married. I just kind of assumed that, like, right. She's got a kid. We're at church. That's kind of what I was used to. But so I kind of forgot about her. And then, I don't know, at least a year later.
So you forgot about her.
Well, I just
you just kind of dismissed it.
My brain had tagged her as married, and so not an option.
And so you just said, I'm setting boundaries on her. Lord, I'm just assuming. Yeah. Right. So we'll hold that for a moment. We're going to come back. So I'm going to ask Amber on this. Amber, did you ever pray about, Lord, ever bring me a godly man, or was that a desire of your heart, or is this like a miracle that God said, hey, I'm going to put somebody in front of you? Or is this something that you were deeply praying for?
Oh, 100%. Funny that the moment that we would actually very first meet, our hearts were both just not ready. We weren't at that time. God knew, like, we just wasn't ready to be in a relationship with each other. My heart was just not like prepared for a godly man. It's funny, the whole background and situation that was happening, because Ellie had just had it was a night of where they do like a almost like a choir thing at our church, and there was a cookie rehearsal or a cookie reception afterwards, and that's when he was drawing. But I was talking to a woman from church about somebody that I had met at a corn maze, and she's like, oh, if he's not saved, never ever talk to him again. Like, this is God trying to pull you, or this is the enemy trying to pull you away from what God has for you. So since that moment, me and this woman, Bree Fitzpatrick, I love her so much, she would come up to me and I would go and talk to her, and I was like, I wanted a husband. I was ready, and we had been praying and praying and praying and years, and whenever I seen him, I'm like, well, this is weird. Why is he just this random guy with my kid? This is weird.
So you were praying and but also getting some godly advice from a godly woman about, being patient.
Yep.
And then so Ben,
and I wasn't ready either.
You were ready. Were you desiring a relationship?
Yeah, definitely, like keeping my eyes open, trying to be content where I was, but still very much like, I really want to find the woman for me. Mm-hmm. And, but I was being discipled at the time. So, and I really, in hindsight, it's good that I didn't really like think of her as an option, because I definitely, like she said, I wasn't ready for her. I wasn't ready to be a dad. I wasn't ready to be a husband. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of prayer and just more, going down the discipleship road, a lot more to learn and to get me ready to realize what being a husband is, because I didn't know. I mean, I was probably taught this, but it never like clicked with me in my, that to be a husband is to be like Christ to somebody, and that means to die to myself. And I mean, I can say that in hindsight, I definitely wasn't ready. But even when we got married, I wasn't ready.
I'm not sure any of us men are ready as well. So
it really like.
But this is about you guys, not about me. So we'll just keep it on that side of the table. When did you find out or discover that she was available? She was single. When did you find that out? And what happened? What was that thought that came across your mind?
So it was at also at our church, we had this college and young adults retreat. It was like a weekend long thing. And the theme happened to be that year about relationships. And so obviously a big focus was like romantic relationships. And I had been dealing with, there was somebody else that I had been considering, but then like maybe not, who am I looking for? And then the pastor is, teaching us, about that very topic. And then it was at the last night of that event, I happened to see her kind of pass by me, and I don't remember that was who was the mom of the girl that I was Ellie, drawing with. At the moment, it was like a new face, and she had these cute space buns. I had never seen a hairdo like that. Perfect spheres right here, and she caught my eye immediately, and the first thought goes through my head is, I wonder if she would go out with me. So, at that point I was like, I didn't know anything in my mind. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know. I guess at that point I knew she was single because she's at this college and young adults thing about relationships. I figured, okay, she's probably not in a romantic relationship yet. And so the next week, it was the next day, I think on a Sunday, I was thinking I was kind of keeping my eyes open. Like, I wonder where I'll see her, if I'll see her again. And then sure enough, I saw her, but she was talking to our pastor, and coincidentally, I was wanting to talk to him too for something completely unrelated. And now they're both talking, and I'm like, oh, dang it, now I got to wait and try to catch both of them. And then somebody else came up and started talking to me. And then next thing I know, their conversation's done. And she's like zipping past me. And I'm thinking, oh no, there was my chance. So it was then the very next week, actually it might've been 2 weeks later, saw her again. And this time I was like ready to I'm not going to miss my chance this time. And she was walking in the building as I was getting ready to go down the stairs. So she like got right in front of me, like this close. And without even skipping a beat or realizing what I was doing, I went, hey, like I hit her like that.
You hit her? You haven't even introduced yourself to her.
Yeah. Hey, what's your name?
Well, you took initiative. So what? You got hit on the arm going down the stairs or something.
So
what?
I knew because our pastor, he's just so great. He was talking. He's like, all right, you guys. He made us all like, all right, who's single in this room? Like, raise your hand if you're a single lady. So we all did. And then he'd be like, all right, keep them up. All right, men, you see this?
Yeah.
These are the women that you need to be going out. And like, because they was
it's like, you guys need to step it up.
Like a biblical way of dating, it's almost like courting, but not quite. But it was funny. So I knew whenever he had tapped me, I knew what it was about. Like, so I was mortified, and like I was walking down to get Ellie a donut to bring it to her class because I had told her I would. And after he hits me, it's like it was moving on to the next service. So everybody, there were so many people there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not happening now. Oh my gosh. So I just like was so flustered. And I'm like, well, I told him my name and was like, you should just add me on Facebook. I got to get my daughter a donut. So
that was it. And she just told me her first name, so I didn't know her last name.
So she passed you up for a donut. Yeah. That's what we're understanding. Yeah. So, Ben, why didn't you just throw in the towel? I mean, you've been waiting and waiting, and she says, I'm choosing a donut over you. So did you give up?
No. At that point, I had been exposed to enough rejection and had been used to needing to put effort into things just in general in life, which is good. So I tried to find her on Facebook, had to look for some of our friends to see if because I didn't know what her last name was.
Took like 3 weeks.
She thinks it took 3 weeks for me to finally.
The woman always knows how long it takes.
It was 3 days.
Oh, it was 3 days.
It was 3 days.
I think I'm going to go with
I played it cool. I didn't want to do it immediately and come off too strong.
It took it felt like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you went out on your first date.
Well, so we first just started just chatting on Facebook, just as friends. And then
I actually decided to be like, hey, let's go out for coffee. I initiated.
She did, yeah.
So that's when we went out on our first
It was
date.
after we saw each other again at this appreciation dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a table, and I happened to sit at her. I didn't realize she was at this table already, and I sit down and then look across the table, and there she is. And she starts like choking, and her friend handed her some water.
She's probably thinking you're stalking her. I mean, you hit her up, and now you show at the table, and you're checking out social media.
Yeah. So I didn't think anything of it. I thought, she just like her food went down the wrong tube or something. Later that night, she messaged me, and we're talking, and she's like, I low-key was excited to see you tonight. And I was like, I low-key was excited to see you too.
Low-key.
And she goes, I was so surprised to see you at my table that I choked on my broccoli. And I was like, oh, so she choked because of me. But in that conversation is when she had the courage to be the one to ask me out for coffee, which I thought was cool. Also a little bit like, oh, dang it, I wasn't fast. I should have beat her to it. But that was pretty cool. And like, gave me some confidence, like, okay, yeah, so it's not completely one-sided. But we went out for coffee and talked, and I really liked her, and
yeah.
So then
our first date was really, I was so nervous. I'm like, I don't think I should even be here. Like,
yeah, you almost didn't come, and then somebody talked you into just doing it.
Yeah, it was so great. But it's funny because my discipler was like, just go slow. You don't have to tell him your whole life story. And nope, I did. I told him my whole life story the first day.
Same.
Might as well rip the Band-Aid off. And if he
Yeah.
runs, he runs. You still
Yeah.
get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And, and I imagine, Amber, at some point, all those things that you were learning about yourself on the recovery program and even the opportunities in relationship class
Yeah.
that Debbie was teaching about, let's make a list of the godly traits that you want to see in a man. And I remember, you remember doing that, making a list and going, okay, that's the list I'm going to stick with.
Yeah.
Before you get your heart tied up with somebody, that list. And I imagine that you were really nervous. I imagine also that you were probably thinking, is this right? Is this
Yeah.
the right thing? Am I doing it the right way? But did you have any doubts after you met him for coffee? And he didn't reject you, even though he felt you were rejecting him multiple times. How did it feel that you told him your story?
It was good, but I still, so even after I had told him my story, I still felt like, okay, well, I have Ellie. They haven't met. I don't know how that's going to work out. So it's not like, and he was faithfully serving in church. He had a job, and he were equally yoked. Like everything matched up. And I feel like as women, what we do is we like live lives like, oh, here's a guy that I'm dating. I want to marry him. Like that's how women's brains can automatically work, or at least mine did. And I'm like, oh, yep, I could see him as my husband, but I don't know. There's all these things. Like I had told him my life story, but a lot of it was still surface. And he hasn't met my daughter. So it was I still had issues of not thinking I'm good enough.
I was waiting for that to come up.
Yeah. So.
Ben, when you heard her story at the coffee shop, what was your first thoughts, impressions that you were processing?
That's a great question. I think it was just a testament to God's grace, and it didn't bother me. I think going back to what I was saying about when we had first met, we definitely weren't ready for each other. If we had that interaction that year before, just being honest, having figured out, like saying hi to her, and then she tells me I got to go get a donut to my kid. At that time, like a year prior, I would have heard, oh, she's got a kid already. No, I'm just not interested, because I just wasn't in a place of seeing a relationship as an opportunity to be like Christ. So I had finally at that point, I was already, when we had that interaction around the donut thing, by then I had switched my mindset from what can I get out of a relationship to what can I offer. And so that completely changed how I saw the possibility of my future spouse being a single mom. And I talk with my best friends a lot about the topic, and one of them, even before we had met, even brought that up. Like, what if God has somebody for you who's already got kids? That might be something for you to consider. And so that kind of prompted me to think about it and pray about it, instead of just like kind of write that off. Cause there's like the desire to start from scratch. Right.
Yeah.
But starting to think through that and pray through that, I got to a lot of peace about like, no, yeah, it's definitely it's not about what I can, what I can get.
Yeah.
But how can I love the woman that's for me? And that very much can be in taking care of her and her daughter. So you mentioned like, this guy hasn't even met my daughter yet. How's that going to work? So we went on a couple little dates, coffee, and then go out to eat. And but then there was one more date where that's when I officially decided, all right, I'm all in. Like, this is the girl I'm pursuing. was the first time that Ellie hung out with us. We went to Loose Park, and at first our plan was to go to Whole Foods and get some food to have a little picnic and then go to the park. And they both come into Whole Foods. I'm already in there, and then immediately Ellie is like just cartwheeling through the whole store. And she
doing the splits on the floor, and I'm just mortified, like, oh, he's never gonna talk to me again.
I was like, this is great. This is fun. So, we just hung out, the three of us, and just had a great time, and
went tree climbing,
climbed a tree together. It was just so much fun. And I just remember thinking, like, yeah, I'm gonna go after this girl. So,
and what's amazing is that both of you had two different kinds of thinking. You know, Amber, you were thinking that you're not worthy, you know, due to your background, and who's gonna marry a single mom with, you know, but Ben wasn't thinking that way. Yeah. And Ben was thinking how I can show my worth and love to a woman. And you guys connected. You connected in a very deep spiritual way. Yeah. How did you find out that you guys were spiritually compatible? We don't talk about that much, but I'm sensing that there was something there because you both were being discipled.
Yeah. So, you want to go?
Sorry. Oh, I was going to say, we had very similar, at that point, she had been going to the church longer than me. I had only been there a couple of years, and I think you were like 4 years there. But I had just finished discipleship, and then right around the same time, actually right around when we started talking to each other, we both got paired to be an apprentice in helping disciple a new believer. So she was with a girl, and I was with a guy. So we had kind of that to connect about. And then also we made it a point to, as you know, kind of a regular sort of date, was to just do a Bible study together. Yeah. And kind of just with the format of what we had learned in our, the Bible studies we were going to, and in discipleship, just that's, how we connected, and go to a coffee shop and like, hey, let's study this chunk of verses together, and
memorize these certain verses.
Yeah, we memorized verse. We made it a point to like pick a verse and then spend a few weeks together memorizing it, and then coming together and reciting it to each other. And yeah.
Oh, and then we would also, our church does like hit the streets evangelism.
Yes.
We would also go and make sure that we would go and do that together. So just sharing the gospel with people and being able to connect with each other on that. And Ellie even came with us once, and she was sharing the gospel. So that was just...
And that was the very first thing that we did together as a couple, because the night that I asked her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes, and it was the first time, because it was just so exciting. But that was a Friday night, and then that next Saturday morning was when we had hit the streets, and that was like our first, like, we're official, we're an item, and we're evangelizing together, and that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That is an incredible story about going through the process of discipleship and being spiritually compatible by doing activities together that you both loved and felt it was important. It just sounded like God was just uniquely knitting your hearts together through the gospel message and God's word. Yeah. At some point, you both made a decision. I think I'm in love, and I think this person's for me.
Yeah.
When did you come to that? I mean, you asked for her permission to be your boyfriend, but at what point did you realize, God, this is the one, Lord? Is this the one? And I think it is.
I don't know if you want to take this one, but I don't know how much you want to share about it, but there was one of our dates.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So it was less surface level. We got deeper, and I told him more about my past. Just like some things that I had done and been through to like fill the void of not having Christ with me. And then just telling him like a lot of my secrets, to where it's like, well, I feel like you need to know these secrets. And yeah.
And you were kind of, tell me if I'm wrong, you were kind of bracing for like, this is where
Yep.
he's gonna
make
break
or
up
break.
with me.
Yeah. So I thought, I'm like, well, I gotta, like you said, rip a Band-Aid off. So
So she
yeah, because
she-
it's like, like I said, very surface level, but still really hard stuff on the first date. But finally, I felt like, okay, well, this is starting to pick up, and I need to be completely open, because it's like, well, he's met my kid, and he just needs to know not just surface level things, but deep nitty gritty stuff that all couples should probably know about each other before they get married.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and that was something that I had been praying through, like, just what are all the, what's a deal breaker for me? And again, at that point, like I said, at one point in my life, somebody having a kid already would have been a deal breaker, and then it wasn't because my priorities changed.
Yeah.
So at this point, she's telling me all this, and it's very emotional. It's very heavy, and I'm telling her, like, dang, okay. And that was but then the very next thing I said was, I love you. Like, that was the first time I told her I love her.
Huge. Amber, you're reliving the moment in a sense.
Yeah.
What did that mean
Yeah.
to you when he said, I love you?
I was just like, whoa. So because I had like thought through, like, okay, well, we're getting serious. These are emotions. Like, I want to be completely honest and open with this man in my life. And after he said, I love you, it's like, whoop, I love you too. Like, it just opened the door. And it's just so funny how, like I said, Romans 8:28, God works all things together for his glory. So it's like these bad things, seemingly bad things, that led to like a relationship of glorifying him. So it's just very... Yeah, and I felt accepted, and I'm like, wow, I am good enough. I like, because I mean, I can still hold on to these, to my flesh and who I used to be. But it's like, well, I'm good enough in God's eyes, and he can see that.
Yeah, and that was something that I had learned, and it was very much that picture of Christ in the church with, a husband and his bride.
Yeah.
I grew up in a church, but it wasn't until like around the time we met, like a year before that I finally understood the gospel, that it was by grace through faith, and not about, how good am I or what am I worth, just how much love the Father has for me. So yeah, it was just, for me, it was just like, it was a kind of a no-brainer at that point. It was like, yes, like, so what? There's like, a lot of stuff in her past, but that's not who she is, and that doesn't matter. Just like my sin doesn't matter anymore to Christ.
Yeah.
So
That is absolutely amazing. And you guys have been married how long now?
a little over 2 years.
2 years. And I understand you're getting ready to celebrate a Christmas in your first home. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, that must be exciting.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot more memories as you guys come together and walk this out. And, it's amazing that we can see a couple that God has been preparing behind the scenes, going through your own issues, resolving them together, and God has brought you together at the right timing with trust and transparency and that godly love that you have for each other. And that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And so this is our wrap up, and this is our wrap up for us. And so I'm so glad that you could join us with this incredible journey that we've had with Amber and Ben here about the challenges and how they overcome it and turn those challenges into stepping stones of transformation in their marriage and in their family. So we hope that this has been meaningful to you, and we're excited. We'd love to have you guys back. Would you come back again?
Sure.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we can talk
For
about more
sure.
about, how a family functions and how God
yeah.
can be at the center of your family. So thank you again. And it's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Living Well. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media for even more inspiration. Want to join our mission? Visit cityunionmission.org. Stay inspired, and we'll catch you next time.